Natalie in Australia. I'm Nona Baker. I have the privilege of being co-chair of MPN Voice. And this for me is a very special monthly vlogcast. I am really honoured to have the steering committee from MPN Advocates Network. Now, as we all know, we are a small cohort of patients in each of our countries. And when I was lucky enough to go to Warsaw to my first Horizons meeting with MPN advocates, I was blown away by what goes on in the background with organizations like theirs for the global community. And I really believe that working as a global community, we'll get our voices heard, and that gives empowerment to each and every one of us patients. So I'm really happy to welcome you and thank you all for joining me. And I'm really excited by the opportunity to hear more about the work that you do. Would you like to just go around and introduce yourselves and say which country you're from, and then I can talk to John. John is my co-chair, as many of you know, and we know he's from the UK. And then we have Felice.
Hi, I'm Felice from Italy. I am a CML patient, but also I'm a coordinator of the AIL patient group. I'm very pleased to stay with you and to talk with you this morning.
Thank you. Maria?
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Stevkova. I'm based in Skopje, North Macedonia. I'm the network manager for MPN Advocates Network, and thank you very much for this kind invitation.
Kapila?
Hello, everyone. I am Kapila Vijas. I head up MPN Research Foundation. We fund research for MPNs worldwide and are based in the United States.
Thank you. Natalie?
Hello, my name's Natalie Cook. I'm from Australia. I'm a member of the MPN Alliance Australia, and I've recently joined the steering committee of the MPN Advocates Network.
Ken?
Hello, my name is Ken Young. I'm also from the MPN Alliance Australia, and I've been on the committee for several years now. Thank you.
Okay. Werner?
Good morning to everyone. My name is Werner Zinker, and I'm living in Germany, and I'm right now in California on the way to Ash.
Giora?
Hi, my name is Giora Scharf. I'm a CML patient for 25 years, the co-founder of Leukemia Patient Advocate Foundation, which is a legal host of MPN AN, along with other 3 global networks. And I also run the Israeli blood cancer patient organization, including MPNs and lymphomas and leukemias.
Thank you, Giora. And now we have Jason.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dražen Vincek. I came from Croatia, and I'm president of Croatian Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So I am very pleasant to thank you to invite me to this podcast, to this blog. Sorry.
Thank you. Sadly, we were missing 2 of your members. One, VG from India, who's on a plane, and Liat from Chile, who is stuck in traffic with a bad connection. But I'm sure you will let us know a bit about what we do. John, I'm going to ask you first, because I know you're one of the original members of MPN Advocates. How did it start? Why did it start? And what were its aims?
Thank you, Nona. Yeah, I've over the past couple of days, I've been looking back over emails and notes from the last decade or so. The idea, I think, started a few months before I got involved, to be fair, as a conversation between some patient advocates in, I believe it was in Holland and in Spain, who had the idea to sort of collaborate together. And I think that then became the idea to create a kind of a broader coalition of patient groups. I got involved in 2012, and I remember the earliest meeting we had was in a tiny little meeting room in a hotel near Heathrow Airport. And I think I was immediately struck by the potential and the power of international collaboration. through my professional life, I've done a lot of working with people in other countries, and I am a passionate believer in working together with people who have the same challenges and the same fundamental kind of drive, but they come to it from different perspectives. And that is the real power and the benefit of this network that we've created. I would say the next major milestone in the growth of the network was our first meeting together, which happened in Belgrade in 2016. Which is when the idea really took shape for me. When I looked around the room, and I think we probably had about maybe 10, possibly 12 countries involved in that meeting. When I looked around the room there and I saw all the conversations taking place between these patient representatives, I knew that we had something very, very important on the go. And we have grown hugely from then. I think our membership is now over 40 different countries. And we had a very successful meeting, as you mentioned, Nona, in Warsaw earlier in the year. So I think there's a long way to go for our network, but I think we've made a fantastic start, and it's something I'm extremely proud to be involved in.
Thank you, John. And I agree with you. It's a very exciting and empowering role that you all play. Felice, can I turn to you, please, and ask about your organization in Italy and how you go about reaching people?
Hi, I will give some background about our organization. The AAL patient group, including the specific one on MPNs, were founded within the charity AAL. AAL is one of the big organizations, the biggest organization on myeloma, lymphoma, leukemia patient, founded 55 years ago. So we have 83 provincial sessions disseminated in Italy. And for this, for us, it's more simple to work with the patient because are present in each province in Italy. Also, AIL support the sponsorship the hematologist in Italy, especially GMEMA, working party of GMEMA, and they are a big organization of physician specialized in hematologist. And all together we work to help patients to improve the quality of life in many kind of system. One is the information, and we organize a seminar and a webinar to create awareness to the patient about the MPN's disease. Also, we organize research from point of view of the patient, how you live, how you cope with a diagnosis of MPN disease in Italy. And the patient group also each hour meeting is recorded and put in our YouTube channel and dedicated channel, and we also recorded even a knowledge base. This a lot of video, 1,070 more video is present in our group. So we contact the patient also behind thanks to the collaboration with the physician. This is our big choice.
Yeah, you sound as if you have a wonderful organization, and you know, I'm full of admiration for how much you are managing to achieve too. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you for your work. MPN Voice is very important for all patients who live with this MPN.
Well, what came away from me from Warsaw is the need for us all to collaborate, because we all have so much to information to be able to share with the community. And I'm actually delighted to let you know that we're sharing a webinar in January with the French MPN organization on for parents with children who have got MPNs. So it's a start, I think. It's an exciting start. Thank you. And perhaps now I'd like to go to Giora. And Giora, what is the cooperation that the organization has with the pharma companies? Because I'm aware that we all have to play a part with the pharma companies, and I'm interested to know what your view on that is and how it works.
Well, when I started, I think 20-something years ago as a patient advocate with the first organization, I think pharma was related to as deep pocket. That's where the sponsorship and the money comes from. And that's what will allow us as patient organization accomplish what we want to do and help and support the patients. But I think things have really moved along, and from the need to independence and transparency, which was the basic cornerstones of the activity of collaboration with pharma. Today, I think it's more working as partners, equal partners. And I think today you see more and more pharma companies bringing in what they call today patient engagement officer, or somebody who will be in charge of how to engage the patient advocates, the patient organization in research, which is extremely important, bringing the patient perspective into the new drug development process. And also we can do it, we are not still doing it in MPN Advocate Network, but it's one of my dreams. And the wishful list is to start doing what we call CABS, Community Advisory Board, between patient organization, the network, and the pharma companies, which will really mean that our voice will be heard and be incorporated into the whole process of the pharma company involvement of patients.
I think that's very exciting, very exciting. And is that your dream for the future?
One of my dreams, of course. Yeah.
Would you like to share one more dream, Giora?
Yeah, of course. I think as a global organization, I think MPN Advocate Network, we see the differences and the gaps between access to treatment in some countries, which we call the more developed Western countries, and some countries which come from the low and middle income countries, where actually still patients do not have access to life-saving treatment. So I think one of my dreams, or wishful dream for the future, is to make sure that every patient, no matter which country he lives, no matter which health system he is under, he will have access to life-saving treatment and be able to get the same quality drug and treatment that every other patient in the Western world is able to access.
That's a really, really good dream to have. Kapila, can I ask you, what advances in research give you most excitement?
Yes, thank you for asking, Nona. It's a wonderful question, because it's a very exciting time in myeloproliferative neoplasms right now from a research perspective. Not only, when our organization started 25 years ago now, we are starting our 25th year, there really were no options for patients. Obviously, we all know well that the first treatment availability of ruxolitinib in 2011 changed the whole paradigm. And since then, we have seen a rapid increase of new treatments and new options for patients. And I think that's the first most important thing to recognize, is just having more options for patients with these cancers that are chronic, and bringing just answers and more options is incredibly important to have an impact on the lives of patients and better outcomes. But today, we're very excited to see that all of this rapid advancement has led us to not only now having 4 JAK inhibitors available to patients, but now new types of treatments are coming online. First, the programs that are targeting patients who have the CALR mutation. So we're moving beyond the JAK inhibitors, and we now have 3 programs of monoclonal antibodies and immunotherapies that are targeting the CALR mutation. And then finally, we actually have a new class of JAK inhibitors that are very, very early trials, but bring a lot of hope and promise to patients. And so, again, just being able to have more options for patients to work with their physicians and their doctors all around the world, and have more comfort that they can live longer lives, they can live better lives, and hopefully one day stamp out their MPN.
Well, that's a hope for all of us, isn't it, with MPNs? But I've noticed too how the globe is becoming a very small place, and I know that a lot of the hematologists here will be in regular contact with other hematologists around the world, and so as a patient, we are now getting the best possible options because all the clinicians talk to each other. I think it's wonderful. And sharing research, sharing experience is again, I use the word empowering, but it really has to be empowering both for the physician and for the patient.
Right.
Yeah. Natalie, you said you were new to MPN Advocates. What drew you to MPN Advocates?
Thank you, Nona. I was invited to join recently. I've actually been involved with MPN advocacy for a long time. I was diagnosed with MPN, initially ET, in 2008 when my children were only 11 and 7 years old. And it was terrifying to learn I had a chronic, incurable blood cancer that had the potential to progress and even become fatal, but there was limited treatment at the time. And at that time in Australia, there was very little information on MPN. And so I read every hematology MPN journal article I could get my hands on. And then in 2010, my diagnosis changed to polycythemia vera, and I started venesection. And at that time in Australia, we only had 2 medications available for treatment of MPN. So there was hydroxyurea and roferon, the older form of interferon that had notoriously difficult side effects. So to help decide on treatment, I attended the 2011 MPN Doctor-Patient Conference in Arizona at the Mayo Clinic. And there I learned that research showed that interferon slowed MPN progression and that Pegasus, the newer form of interferon, was found to be as effective as roferon, but was better tolerated. So on the flight home from the conference, I decided that when I got home, I was going to start roferon and that I would advocate to get Pegasus onto the Australian Government Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme, the PBS, for MPN patients in Australia. So over the next 7 years, I advocated with the pharmaceutical company Roche, who made both roferon and Pegasus, with local politicians and federal politicians in Australia and the Australian government asking to get Pegasus put onto the PBS for MPN. And during this time, Roche kindly offered me compassionate access to Pegasus, which I gratefully accepted, and I tolerated Pegasus a lot better than roferon. However, I continued to advocate to get Pegasus on the PBS for Australian patients because it was out of the reach of most people, being about 30,000 Australian dollars a year for a patient who needed it. And then a real breakthrough came when I met the chair of the Pharmaceutical Benefits Advisory Committee at a conference in Canberra. And I eventually wrote a letter to him, and it was tabled at their regular meetings. So that's the government organisation that make approvals and recommendations to the Health Minister for government funding of medications. And then finally in 2018, Pegasus was approved for treatment of MPN on the PBS. And then later I was invited to be co-author on a medical journal article with several haematologists on treatment guidelines for Pegasus in MPN in Australia. And then on Australia Day in 2022, I was astounded to be awarded a Medal of the Order of Australia, an OAM, for my advocacy work in MPN and also for services to dietetics. I'm a dietitian, my professional job, and I still have no idea who nominated me, but I know that hundreds of MPN patients in Australia now have affordable access to Pegasus. And in about just after 2018, I joined the MPN Alliance Australia, and that had newly formed. And so I'm an MPN advocate with the group of that. There are 7 of us, as I mentioned earlier, and we're all MPN patients.
That is just brilliant, and many, many congratulations on achieving so much and the medal that you've been given. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you, Nona. Thank you.
Maria, I'm just going to go back to you and say, you've got people from around the world to manage and an organization that is global to manage. What are its challenges, and how do you cope with that?
Thank you for your question on well, yeah, I have to admit it's quite a challenge, and it was a big challenge when I started 3 years ago. Like when you have from Australia, from UK, from Israel, from USA, from Chile, and I was like calculating the time, and I was like, oh my God, how am I gonna manage this and get all these people together or something like that? But once I get to know them all, it's actually quite easy. I mean, they're really flexible and really easy to work with and to collaborate with them. And they're big I have a lot of support from all of them, and they make this part of my job, of my work, quite easy, I have to be honest. So, I mean, you can see now at the moment, Natalie and Ken, like in the middle of the night, joining us for this call, or Kapila at 6 a.m. in the morning. So, I mean, they contribute a lot to making my work, especially my work, easier in this part. So I'm really happy to be part of a great teachers and great supporters, and I'm really happy to be part of this network.
And thank you very much for all the organization you work with Maz and I to make this possible today. So you talked about Ken, and I'm coming to Ken now to say, say, Ken, I mean, how it feels, I know it's the other side of the world down under there. How easy is it for you to be connected to everybody in Europe and everything? And also my other question is, do you have, because you're so far away, do you also forge links with some of the other poorer nations in your area? How does that work?
Yes, look, the MPN Alliance Australia was formed in 2017, but I set up a MPD Oz, which was a email group starting back in 1998. And I've been connecting with a lot of organisations and individuals across the Asia Pacific region, particularly working with the Max Foundation, but also I've been working with organisations in New Caledonia, New Zealand, and some of the other organisations. There are other organisations like in Fiji and in the Solomon Islands in particular that we've had some connections with. I think the overall issue is that the Asia Pacific is a new area. We work closely with Pusuat in Thailand, but there's also emerging groups, particularly in Malaysia and in Indonesia. And a lot of the organisations, we actually make our own material available, and we're moving more and more towards making our treatment material, our treatment notes available in languages other than English, which we get professionally translated. We also have a lot of visitors when we look at our web analytics for the MPN Alliance Australia website. The analytics show that we get a lot of visits from all over the globe, but also from around our region. I've worked in another community-based organisation around community informatics, but what I find with the collaborating with people, particularly around MPNs, is that there's a greater sense of common purpose. There's a greater sense of camaraderie. I think going to the conferences, I've been to MPN conferences now 3 times, Israel, Croatia, and just in Warsaw. And one of our MPN AA members, Yolanda, was at the very first meeting in Belgrade, and she was also at the meetings in Lisbon. So we've had a long-standing links between Australia and the MPN, and it's also that sense of learning. I think we're always constantly learning and developing, and we're also Natalie mentioned that we're a small group, but we've raised nearly. We're part of the a patient group within the structure of the Leukemia Foundation of Australia, and previously we had a fundraising capacity which no longer exists. But whilst we were actively fundraising, we raised over close to 280,000 Australian dollars for Australian-based research. One of our projects was to work with the drugs that has now been trialled, which is Silence. So we funded the animal model to right before it all happened. Nathalie and I have been involved with various patient groups, and all of our advocates, all 7 of us, have been involved in different aspects of patient advocacy. And in addition to getting Pegasus on the pharmaceutical benefits, one of the campaigns which has been very successful has been to get access for new gene sequencing for all patients. MPN patients can get access to the MPN panel, and if you have myelofibrosis, you can get access to the full myeloid panel. Funded through our healthcare system, so there's no out-of-pocket expenses. So
you're doing amazingly, Ken. I mean, just listening to you, I think you really are developing a really strong base, and then particularly for the other nations in Asia that you talk about, the Solomon Islands, and I'm really in awe of that, because we forget that, and unfortunately Vijay isn't here to talk about the Max Foundation, but what's going on in India is also, and Chile is also helping patients. Thank you, Ken. That was really enlightening. Can I turn to you, Drazen, and just ask about, you're in Eastern Europe, and is there a difference between treatments in Eastern Europe and Western Europe?
Actually, there's on my opinion, there's a very big differences. So regarding the availability of medicines for MPN patients, in the Republic of Croatia and this part of Europe. I can say briefly that situation is of improving of medicines are become more and more available to us, but we manage quite well to follow some modern treatment trends, while the availability of the latest therapies is slow. But we manage to make them possible through clinical studies. The main limitation, as in other diseases, or whether the cost of treatment are covered by our insurer, because these are usually very expensive therapies, as you know. So some kind of resume. Guidelines are the same. However, accessibility to drugs differs. Lower number of clinical studies is available, especially for myelofibrosis. Regarding approved modern therapies, they are either reimbursed under very strict conditions, for example, ruxolitinib for myelofibrosis, or they have to be booked by the patients. So some institutions with their donations. Interferons for all the indications, ruxolitinib for polycythemia vera. At the end, the message is that there are few studies and most of new drugs are not covered by insurance, although they are generally available at reasonable, or not reasonable, actually not reasonable on big prices for patients. Patients may buy it on their own cost. So.
That's a huge challenge, isn't it, with the variation in the cost of these drugs across the globe? You know, I think it sounds as if it would be a great thing if there could be one cost that is the same for everybody in the future, somewhere along the line. Yeah, but yes, it does present its challenges, and particularly if patients have to pay for it. I can see that.
Yeah.
You've got your hand up.
That's the catch, because everything is available, but it isn't.
I know, it's a real catch, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
But there's a lot of work to be done there, clearly, and you're making inroads into it, which is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyway, Werner, last but not least, you're chair of the steering committee, and I know it's very early in the morning for you in California. And thank you for being here with us today. But what was your journey to becoming a board member of an international organization like yours?
Nona, it's 4 a.m. It's like in a song of Leonard Cohen. I like the place where I'm living. And I like all these marvelous people you talk to. My journey started in 2011. I was diagnosed with PV, and my doctor understood PV, and she told me it's a very, very rare disease. I was living in Munich, and she told me you are the only one at Marienplatz. Marienplatz is in city center, and that's how I felt at that time. I was very lonely. And I have just been to Sicily, and we visited places, Messina, where a big earthquake was 100 years ago. And if you get a diagnosis of a chronic fatal disease, it's like an earthquake, like a private earthquake. Yeah. Everything around is breaking down. And you have to organize, you have to start a new life. You have to build up everything new. And it takes 1 year, it takes 10 years for some people. And I was lucky. I met another guy who started a small group in Munich. And after 2 months, we were 3 people. And we could talk about our disease, we could talk about doctors, we could talk about our feelings. That's very important. And at the same time, in Germany, there's an MPN network. Internet is a great success for us. And I became one of the board members. I stayed for 9 years in the board. I became a little bit a troublemaker, for I was pushing too quick. And I wanted to reach out for too much at the same time. And the network, the German group, grew from 300 to 1,400 in these years, and that was a great success. In 2016, I was invited to join the global MPN advocates. The first meeting was in London, and my English is still very bad, but meanwhile, I learned a lot. In 8 years, you learn a lot and you come back. It's school English. Kiora always said, our Congress language is bad English. And that's still true. For we are not native speakers, but
so.
it's important. Yeah. And I became chair. And what I like most is you see how all these engaged people all over the world work for a better future for patients with MPN. And that's really amazing. If you look at these advocates, we heard them talking right now, what they have achieved. And what is very important, what I also learned, the connection to the physicians, to the doctors, and I met so marvelous people. I love Claire. Claire Harrison is great. Yeah, she's exceptional. And there are very many more people. And you get close contacts, you get the private telephone numbers, you can ask them questions. And it's a very unusual situation, I guess, for a patient to have these close relations. And what also is very important, in Germany, we have big problems to talk to pharma companies. For the German health system enables us to spend money for our group. It's very easy. It's rather easy, I would say. It's more easy than in other countries. It's terrible what you hear from small countries, how they have to live with it or how they get knowledge. And in Germany, it's not necessary to ask pharma companies, but it's very important to talk to these people. For I always say we're sitting in the same boat, we are driving in the same direction, but we're sitting on opposite sides. And I always know I'm a patient advocate. I'm not a marketing man. I'm not a businessman. I'm on the side of the patients. And we have to work together. That's very important.
I think it's why we're all here today, isn't it? We all have to work together. Werner, thank you. I've got one final question for you as chair. Where do you see MPN advocates in 5 years' time? What would you like to see having been achieved?
There's different topics. First of all, we have to grow the network. That's very important. And we have to open it. At the moment, we are very European-centered. And we have to open it to the world. We have to open it to Asia. We have to open it to Africa. And we have to open it to more eastern parts of Europe. There's a big difference in these countries. And Maria is nodding, and Maria is a great help. I have to mention Maria. She's a great manager for us. Thank you, Maria. That's important to tell in here. Yeah? And that's one of the topics. Kiora is founder of the CML network. The CML network started 20 years ago, and they also started from zero, and they have 130 members, meanwhile, in different countries all over the world. We started in 2016, I would say, John. Yeah, you started in 2012, but we started in 2016. That's 8 years now, yeah, not 20. And we should grow and we should become similar power like CML. And the incidence in CML and MPN is nearly the same. Why shouldn't we grow? That's one topic. The next point is availability of drugs. What Kiora said, availability, all patients should get the best available treatment. It's a little bit naive, but that's what we patients would say. And a third point I would like to make, we have to care more for young people. It's a difference when you get your diagnosis. If you are 20 and you get a diagnosis of a chronic disease which will last all your life, and you build a family, you build a career, doing things. It's different than I got it with 58. That's very important to look for the young people. That's for the moment.
Well, I think everything you said is achievable with a group of people like you are. It just is the energy and the enthusiasm is there, and I'm sure a lot of those goals will be met by 5 years' time. Can I just say a huge thank you to you all, because it's been really, really interesting, and I'm sure that the people on the YouTube channel who listen to my vlogcasts will gain a lot of information about an organization that they don't know about. We're very sort of insular in our countries, and I think it is, and I use the word empowering, to know that there is such a thing as a global organization who is acting in the best interest of the patients in every other aspect. I hope to see you all again soon, and thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.